All right, let's now talk about horizontal lines and vertical lines. What do their equations look like? Let's start with let's start with horizontal lines. Let's do that one first since I had that written first. Horizontal lines. Of course, a horizontal line goes like this. And if I have a coordinate plane, I'll just throw one in here. Name a couple ordered pairs on that line. Now, if you can read my writing, I filled in some ordered pairs. I have 6, 4, I have 5, 4, I have 1, 4, I have 0, 4, which would be the y-intercept, and I have negative 4, 4. What is always the same? Well, you got it. It's always the y value. And what's the y equal to? Every single time on a horizontal line, it's a 4. It doesn't matter what the x input is. The y is always 4. So guess what that equation looks like? The equation of that line right there looks like this. Y equals 4. Or should I make it darker and bolder for you? Y equals 4. So you set up a t-chart and you have an equation where it says y equals 4. You have the x, you have your y. You put in a 0 for x. What's your y? It's a 4. If you put in a negative 90 for x, what's your y going to be? You got it. It's going to be a 4. If you put in 0.37 in for x, which would be like right in here, the y is going to be a 4. So the equation of that line will be y equals 4, which fits standard form. Remember, ax plus by equals c? The a can be a 0, so there is no x term. You just have y equals 4. So let's try this again. If you have a coordinate plane, x-axis, y-axis, and you have a line that's horizontal, and it goes like this, and the y-intercept, you ready? The y-intercept is 0, negative 6, and that's a horizontal line. What will be the equation for that line? You got it. Y equals negative 6. That's it. That's the equation for the line right there. Now you could say, hey, well, that's standard form. You mentioned that because ax plus by equals c. A doesn't have to be any integer. It could be a 0 integer, excuse me. So there's no x term. But how does that fit with slope-intercept form? Well, y equals mx plus b. Think about it. Y equals mx plus b, where b is the y-intercept. That would be a negative 6. And the slope, well, we know the slope of a horizontal line is 0, which makes sense because 0 times x is 0. So if you were to simplify this, you would end up with y equals negative 6. Because a horizontal line has 0 slope, so there's no x term in there, so y equals negative 6 is the equation. So now let's talk about vertical lines. What does that equation look like? All right, let's look at a vertical line. Let's get a coordinate plane, x and y axis, and let's draw a vertical line over to the right here. I'm going to name some ordered pairs. You could probably be thinking of some right now. What ordered pairs could be on that line? So you see the points I picked. I picked 7, 3. I picked the 7, 0, which would end up being your x-intercept. I have 7, negative 1, and 7, negative 5.5. What is always the same every time in those ordered pairs and that vertical line? What's always the same is the x equals 7. So guess what the equation looks like? X equals 7. That's it. That's the equation of that line. So if you have a t-chart to keep track of all your ordered pairs, you have an x input, y output, and you put in a 7, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get a 0. Or if you put in a 7, you could get a 3. Or you put in a 7, you could get a negative 5.5. Somebody said, what if you put x is 10? Well, that's impossible. because the equation says x has to be 7. It can never equal 10. That would not be on that line. So the equation is just x equals 7. Now, does that fit standard form? Yep. ax plus by equals c. B can be 0, so there's no 0 term in there. But now, if you wrote that into slope-intercept form, you and I know is y equals mx plus b. And the problem with that is you need the slope. And what's the slope of a vertical line? Remember rise over run? Well, it goes up and down, but it doesn't go left to right. So you'd be dividing by a 0, and you can't divide by 0. Well, you can, it's just undefined. So there is no slope, so you cannot put it into slope-intercept form. You would write it as x equals 7. All right, to make sure you got it, let's do one more coordinate plane. And let's put in a vertical line, and let's put it like right here. Come on, you're gonna work for me. Sometimes this thing delays. There we go. Let's pretend that's straight up and down. The equation of that line will be x equals, and then it depends on where it crosses the x-axis, where the x-intercept is. If that crosses at -1, the equation will be x equals -1. If it crosses at -2, it'll be x equals -2. If it crosses at -1/2, it'll be x equals -1/2, because all the x coordinates will always be the same in that line. So let's say that point is -2, 0. Yuck. Swap and look at -2. The equation of that line would be x equals -2. So hopefully you understand the difference between talking about vertical lines and horizontal line equations. A horizontal line equation, y equals. A vertical line equation is x equals. Good luck with that. Do your best.